The Trump administration has added 6 new countries to the immigration ban rolled out in 2017. It restricts people in select countries from moving to the United States. Starting February 22nd, the ban will be extended to individuals from Eritrea, Myanmar, Kyrgyzstan, Sudan, Tanzania, and Nigeria, the largest nation in Africa. The Trump administration has already banned travel from 7 other predominantly Muslim countries. The extension of this ban is the latest in a series of restrictive immigration policies from the Trump administration. CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins me now on set. Tell us, what is the scope of these new measures, and what is the Trump administration's rationale for extending this controversial policy?
Under the executive order that President Trump signed on Friday, citizens of Eritrea, in Africa, of Nigeria, also in Africa, the continent's largest economy and its most populous country, Myanmar in Southeast Asia, and the former Soviet Republic of Kyrgyzstan will be ineligible for immigrant visas to move permanently here to the U.S., meaning that all immigration from these countries will be virtually brought to a halt under these new measures, which will also prohibit citizens of Tanzania and Sudan, also countries in Africa, from participating in the diversity visa lottery, a program that President Trump has often criticized. The administration says that these measures are necessary to ensure that these 6 countries are able to increase their information sharing about terrorism and criminal activity, and also to upgrade their passport systems.
Now, what will this mean for people who already have immigration visas from these countries that expected that they were going to be able to come here?
Yeah, that was a question we asked administration officials over the weekend, and they said explicitly that these new measures will not affect people who have already been granted visas. But once this order goes into effect later this month, it will affect those who undergo interviews to be granted visas.
So, Camilo, you also recently reported that the Trump administration has plans to expand a policy that restricts asylum seekers on the U.S.-Mexico border.
Yes, the Department of Homeland Security is looking to expand within the next couple of weeks 2 controversial programs to expedite the processing and deportation of asylum seekers at the southern border. These programs have drawn criticism from advocates and lawyers because migrants subject to them are forced to fight their deportation orders and to make their case to stay in the U.S. within a matter of days while detained in restrictive, secure Customs and Border Protection facility, which lawyers cannot access.
As part of as my understanding, is as part of the international community and connected to international law, the United States government is supposed to accept asylum seekers. So how does the Trump administration rationalize this action?
Right. So we have to look at all these policies from the Trump administration's perspective. And multiple officials have said that they believe that most migrants who claim asylum at the southern border are actually economic migrants, that they do not have valid asylum cases. So from their perspectives, these measures are necessary to stem the flow of migration from Central America and from other parts of Latin America and even from Africa, because these migrants do not have valid asylum claims. And their numbers seem to back them up, right? Apprehensions across the border have plummeted in the past 7 months since the unprecedented flow of Central American families in May.
Now, we all remember the tremendous backlash that happened when the Trump administration had previously announced the immigration ban. Are you seeing the same sort of public outrage, or have people just gotten used to the fact that the courts have decided that this is going to be acceptable and the president is going to continue to do this?
Soon after President Trump took office in 2017, he issued this executive order banning immigration and non-immigrant visas from 7 predominantly Muslim nations. And this came afterwards, after he pledged on the campaign trail to order a complete and total shutdown of Muslims entering the U.S. That was one of the main reasons why there was so much public outcry and chaos at airports. But these restrictions are more limited. And of course, this third version of the travel ban was upheld by the Supreme Court 2 years ago when the conservative justice had said that the president has sweeping authority to ban the entry of foreigners to this country if he cites national security concerns.
So let's talk about the Asylum Cooperative Agreement. We understand that the Trump administration is looking to expand that agreement. Under the current agreement, they've been deporting asylum seekers from Honduras and El Salvador to Guatemala. What issues has this raised?
Right. So advocates are very worried about these agreements because they say Guatemala, for example, a country with a very small asylum system and that has seen an exodus of hundreds of thousands of its own citizens fleeing north towards the U.S. because of endemic violence and widespread poverty, should not be in the business of granting foreigners protection. We've now sent nearly 400 asylum seekers from Honduras and El Salvador to Guatemala, and we've reported today that most of them, the vast majority of them, are women and children. So that is obviously a very big concern for advocates.
I want to stay on top of the Stay in Mexico program that the president and the Trump administration announced. You've reported that 57,000 asylum seekers have been forced to wait in Mexico. Through the program so far, there have been criticisms of this program. What is its current status? And can you tell us more about how people who are trying to reach the United States and are stuck in Mexico, how they're faring?
Right. So returns under this program, which requires asylum seekers at the southern border to wait in Mexico for the duration of their immigration court proceedings instead of the interior of the U.S., have actually gone down in recent weeks. Why? Because the administration now has at its disposal different programs like the asylum agreements with the countries in Central America to get basically migrants off U.S. soil as quickly as possible. So they're implementing different policies, so they are not relying as much on the Remain in Mexico policy. But this will be a challenge for the president and even for a Democratic administration if a Democrat indeed defeats President Trump in November, because there are 57 asylum seekers currently waiting in northern Mexico for their chance to appear before an immigration judge here in the U.S.
Thank you for staying on top of all of it, Camilo Montoya-Galvez. Thank you.
Thank you so much.